just having the best press conference I'd ever had. And I kept looking out there, and I never got any questions. And so I finally realized I was in the wrong spot. But they were all good. So anyway, it's business as usual for us. We've had a really good camp. We've had a couple scrimmages, 115, 120 plays that have gone very well. Team's excited. Our health is good. Finally got some heat, so it's good we're getting a chance to work in some heat. And just looking forward to the next 5 or 6 practices, and then we'll start to back off a little bit and get ready to play the game.
Mike, because of experience, it's a lot different group to coach this year. How enjoyable, I guess is the best word, has this group been to coach through the camp?
It's kind of double-edged there. You have times you get a little frustrated because there's so many young players out there, but then also it's very enjoyable to watch them progress and develop. And it's a different year for us. We have a lot of players that are inexperienced, and they're learning on the run, and so we bring them along just like we did the last group.
Mike, when you open season against a team of this caliber, they're defending national champs, 14-0, a bunch of future All-Americans and NFL draft picks, Heisman Trophy winner.
That's awesome. You reminded me. I hadn't even eaten lunch yet. Yeah. Go ahead.
How do you temper that, especially having such a young team, in your preparation and telling guys that none of that stuff matters, that it's just about you, or do you embrace it and say, this is your big opportunity, it's Jerry Jones Stadium?
I think it's much easier nowadays because they know everything before they actually get to us. With the exposure with social media, they know more about the other guys than we do. So just like every other opponent, we show them what we think are their strengths, their weaknesses, and what our game plan is, and we ask them to prepare and go out and play hard.
And Mike, you coached against Vince Young, Sam Bradford, Matthew Stafford, Colt Ford, Robert Griffin, Andrew Luck. What is Jameis Winston?
Nick Foles too, right?
Huh?
Nick Foles.
Graham Harrell.
Graham Harrell.
Yeah.
He's a really good player that's dangerous in that he can make a play at any time. He's got a strong arm. He's hard to bring down. He's mobile, and he's got a great supporting cast. And there's a lot of similarity in those players that you mentioned that they came along during their tenure. That there was really good players around them, and they're obviously excellent football players.
What are your thoughts on Carlos Williams, the running back?
What's that?
Carlos Williams, the running back.
What about him?
Your thoughts on what do you see when you look at the film?
Well, there's a group of guys that play for them at the wide receiver position, the running back position, the secondary position, that are terrific skilled athletes. And when we break down opponents each week, we try to categorize what would be college players, somewhat below college players that are playing at this level, and then guys that have the capability of playing in the NFL. And the majority of those guys at those positions have the capability of someday playing in the NFL.
Mike, now that you've been able to look at some film from fall camp, can you pinpoint the strength of your team right now?
No.
Just haven't seen enough from them to kind of identify what that would be?
Well, I mean, we have depth at the defensive line position. We're young at linebacker, and we're young in the secondary. We're a little mature in the offensive line, but don't have much depth. And at the running back and wide receiver spot, we have the same guys, which should be a little better through experience.
Mike, what went into moving Dawson Bassett to the other side of moving from linebacker to tight end? I guess when did that happen, and sort of was that something he wanted to do or you guys wanted to do with him?
We moved him a couple of practices ago. We thought he'd be best suited to help us on offense.
Mike, you've set a standard the last 5 or 6 years of winning at a high level. Get a year like this year where you lose 27 seniors and then some other guys. It looks like a rebuilding year, but have you reached the point where it doesn't have to be because of the kind of program you've built?
Well, we're going to find out. Each year we find out where we're at, and this is the most difficult year that we've had when it comes to returning players. I've said this, there's only 28, 29 guys on our team now that have actually really factored in and played that we know how to play at this level. Usually we have 45 players in there. So we'll find out where we're at. We have good young players in the program, but they're just not very experienced.
How would you compare it to the 2010 team when you had new quarterback, some new skilled players, young defensive guys?
It's not not really in that league. Those guys are all playing the NFL.
Who's your backup quarterback?
I'm not sure. We're playing. JW's getting most of the reps with the ones, and then the other two guys are splitting reps.
Coach, how important are James Castleman and Jimmy Beaton, not only in terms of their ability, but in terms of leadership, given the fact that there are a couple guys that have played quite a bit?
They fall in that category, the 29 guys that have been there. They've played in bowl games. They've been on national TV. They've played in big stadiums, played on the road, had success, understand the ups and downs during the season. And we need leadership from those players.
Is there a transition that guys in training camp go through, and maybe it's more pronounced for a young team, when you're trying to improve every day and you're trying to maybe win a job or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get to game week or game prep, and they have to settle into their spot. They have to go to the scout team, or they have to, they're more focused on the opponent and the game plan rather than themselves and getting themselves better. Is there a transition there?
Yes.
Can you kind of describe that, how that works, and maybe how it changes when you have a more inexperienced team?
Well, it's been a week earlier for us this year because we feel like we have to get into game planning for Florida State, and so it's what would be really 8 practices earlier that would be custom for us and kind of change routine. I'm not big about changing routine, but we felt like that's what was best for our football team. And then we needed to get some young players in positions and try to settle them in. And, they can't get any experience in practice, but hopefully multiple reps will get them a little bit more prepared to play in the game.
Along those lines, do you think maybe college football is like the only place where guys actually look forward to going to school, to the start of school, the first day of school, because it gets them out of the two-a-day mindset or whatever in training camp?
Traditionally, yes. 100 years ago when we were doing it, it was twice a day, 3 hours a day on the turf. Sometimes we went on the grass, but a lot was on the turf. And they didn't even take a temperature for anybody to know there was a danger of being on the turf. Told you to keep your mouth shut and keep practicing. And today, there's only a certain number of two-a-days. I think we have either 3 or 4 this year. Everything else is a single practice with walkthroughs in the afternoon with the new restrictions. And it's not near as trying on your body mentally or physically as what it used to be. I'm not saying that they aren't looking forward to school starting, because I think they like routine, and their friends are back, and they like that part of it, the social part of college, but it's not near what it used to be.
Are you ever tempted to use JW in the run game like you did with Zach Robinson his first 2 years as a starter?
JW will run the football, yes.
As frequently maybe as Zach?
Just depends on what they play us. How they play us based on what they think our strengths are and where our weaknesses are, and it could differ each week.
By far, JW is the most known commodity, but of the other 2 guys that are trading reps, Mike, Dax hadn't played really since high school, practiced a lot. You've seen him. Mason, fresh off a state championship year. How would you characterize their development during camp and what you've seen from them?
Well, each one of those guys has come a long way since the spring, and even more so since camp. But they don't have any experience. One guy hasn't played in an organized game in like 4 years, and the other guy was playing high school ball last year. So they've come along and they're doing better. But what to expect if they're out there in a crucial situation? We would like to be able to use those guys when we want to use them, not somebody else determine when we have to use them. And only time will tell how they play.
How would you compare Walsh at this point last year to now?
Oh, I think he's more experienced through practice, but he didn't get much game experience. I think he's played 8 or 9 games in his career, so he hadn't even played 1 season. But he's better now just through all the reps that he's had in practice.
How much does it affect a guy when maybe you're the man or you're the starter or whatever, and you don't have to compete, you don't have to look over your shoulder, you don't have to worry about what the other guy's doing, you're going to start the season open?
I think it depends on the player. Some athletes worry about a guy. Some of them thrive on competition. Just depends on the person.
Mike, you're able to avoid injuries in fall camp. Did it also serve as a time for some of the guys who were injured last spring or last season to get healthier? Are there any updates on those guys?
We don't have any injury updates.
Did you watch the national title game live? Florida State Auburn.
You mean on TV?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think I was doing something else. I can't remember.
I'm just curious, when you watch a game like that and you know that team's up next on the schedule, can you watch it as a fan, or do you watch it more as a coach? Or
Watch everything as a coach. You know, I did watch most of that game. I missed parts of it for some reason. I don't remember, but I watched most of it. But when you said that, you don't really watch it as a fan. I don't watch any games as a fan anymore. I watch specific things and try to create ideas. Hopefully sometime in my life I'll be able to watch a game as a fan.
Mike, you guys went into last year a little bit unsettled at quarterback for the starter. Do you feel better about your quarterback situation this year than you did a year ago at this time?
I think it's very similar. JW has obviously worked more with the first group. Last year was a little bit more evenly, or more even from a rep standpoint. The difference this year is they bring something different to the table. Clint and JW were very similar in their abilities and what we were able to execute on offense.
Who has emerged in your secondary? I know that's one of the main concerns coming into the season. Who are your guys right now that you feel pretty good about going into this game?
Well, we have Peterson and Lampkin that, are returners, and obviously Stearns is back, and a guy that played just a little bit last year for us, and then Larry Stevens has given us some help there. And then behind those guys will be pretty much all freshmen.
Mike, it's been reported in the past that you prefer a softer non-conference schedule to start the year, but now that we're into game week here and you see how excited your guys are, does your mindset on that change at all?
Not really. You play golf? What if they said you could tee off at the ladies' tees but score the same? Come on now. Thank you.
Mike, is Tyreek Hill?
They put us on the tips, just so you know. we're on the tips, and I do want to clear one thing up, okay? We've embraced this game, all right? I've offered opinion. Coach Holder and I, we've had this discussion. This has gone on forever, okay? And he and I see eye to eye on things. Ultimately, they make the last decision, and that doesn't mean there's an issue. And we've embraced this from the spring and from the fall, that we're playing the best team in the country with the best player in the country, and in a lot of people's opinion. And this will give us a good idea of where we're at. And we've not looked back from that. Our team's been told this is the game plan in all three phases. You go out and you work your tail off, and we expect you to play and play hard. And what a great opportunity. There's guys that are going to be playing, probably 8 of them. I counted the other night right before I went to sleep, and it kept me up for 2 hours. 8 guys that will be playing, and I told them, I said, just think this is awesome. Last year you were playing high school ball, now you're playing against Florida State. It's pretty cool. And they kind of looked at me like they thought I was joking. And I said, you are going to play. You understand that, right? Get out there and let's get after it. So we've embraced it, and I think they've worked hard. And I have a lot of confidence in them and in their ability to go and play hard.
To this point, has Tyreek Hill worked out as well as you could possibly have imagined coming out of a junior college situation?
We've talked a lot about Tyreek, and he's worked at multiple positions for us, and in return game and wide receiver and running back, and had a tremendous amount of success in track. And I've been very impressed with his ability to stay humble with all the success and all the talk that's gone on about him for a guy that hasn't even played it down yet. But he's showing signs of being a good football player.
You had different levels of skill position guys, but your offensive line is always good. What's your level of confidence that it'll be at that typical level this season?
I think they'll be fine. We just don't have a lot of depth there. We have a lot of young guys behind them, and that's always a concern at that position, really all positions. When you go from a mature player that's got some experience, you can take a guy that's got 15 games of experience, and his talent level on a 1 to 10 could be a 6. He's better than a guy that's an 8 or 9 that doesn't have any experience.
Had you been on the field at all before you ran out there against Houston when you were freshman? Had you taken any snaps?
You talking about when I played? I didn't hear that.
Been on the field at all before that day against Houston when they ran you out there or something?
I'm sure I went out in pregame warm-up.
No. I mean in the game. Was that your first game snap?
No, I played the high school state championship there. I can't figure out what you're asking me.
Did you play before you went in at halftime of that
played
Houston
all,
game?
even in
No,
the
that was my
bubble?
first play ever in college. Yeah.
Did it just seem blindingly fast to you? Or were you really ready to play as a freshman?
I wasn't ready to play. It all moved really fast for me, and I got lucky that I was surrounded by good players. guys that we could hand the ball and toss the ball to, and had good players to throw it up and they'd make plays. If I wasn't surrounded by good players, I may not have made it, because if they would have put it on me, I'd have been in trouble. But I was fortunate enough that I was around really good players, and I was smart enough to know to let them make the plays and me just kind of get them in the right spot.
So now Ryan Simmons and Peterson and those guys have that kind of same burden with the young guys you're going to be rotating.
That's correct.
Georgia in 2007, you guys went down there with a decent team, but got beat pretty good. And you said we weren't ready for the big time. It seems like you're well past that. You're inexperienced, but you're taking a young team. But I don't think, do you have to worry about that? But or has the program reached a point where you know you can compete?
Well, it's like I said earlier, we'll find out. But this is a different group we're playing than Georgia 2007. It's not the same team. Had a great quarterback, but this is a different group.
Mike, does your coaching staff worry about the young guys kind of hitting the freshman wall, so to speak, and just getting to a point where they're not able to absorb much more? Do you guys deal with that, work with that? How do you get freshman kids through their first year?
We have great concern of that. Usually happens in the middle of October. They don't function very well. They have a tendency to miss some classes. Their results in the weight room drop, and then they recover a little bit in the last couple games of the year. And I wish I knew what the ingredients were to keep that from happening, but we could very well have 8 players with a considerable amount of playing time in the middle of the season that are true freshmen. And we got to try to do everything we can to keep them from hitting that wall, but that is a factor.
You mentioned Florida State's a different team than the Georgia team you played, but are you guys at a different level too? Because going into that game, Oklahoma State have won a lot of big games through the years. You guys have won a lot of big games since here in the last few years. So from that perspective, is a little bit different too.
We were a more experienced team back then. We had guys coming back that had played. We weren't in the situation we are now from an inexperienced standpoint. The players that are competing now, 2 years from now, could very well be more talented as a group than what were there. And I think there's a statistic out there during that year, 2007 or 2008, we had 24 guys that eventually made it to the NFL.
Not the 07 team?
08 team. Those years all run together for me now. I can't remember, but I think there's some really talented players on this team that's not having experience, and you know it's until you get out there and do it, you don't really know what to expect. We think we know how certain guys will play. We think there's youth that'll play a factor in so many different scenarios in the game, but we don't really know for sure. We'll see. Some guys played better. Like Joe Randall played better than you ever would have thought he would have as a true freshman. We didn't think he would play that well, but for whatever reason, his mental capability, he could handle the situations. Heat didn't bother him. Crowds didn't bother him. TVs didn't bother him. He had a high tolerance for pain. And then other players that you think will perform better than they did, we don't know why they don't. So.
Mike, based on what you know with where the legal process is at, is there a chance that Devin Thomas could play this year?
You keep asking me that question. I keep telling you he's not on our team. See, the young guy, they stick you with all the bad questions. Trammell and those guys, they say, hey, you ask it.
Well, just because we haven't heard a definitive answer.
And again, I'm not trying to be a horse's butt here, but he's not on our team, okay? He's not on our roster. He's not on scholarship. He's not on our team.
Lack of all the preparation as a player, assistant, head coach, does this Florida State team rank as far as getting ready for an imposing team? Are they at the top of the list?
They're as good as any team that we've ever played, in my opinion.
You mentioned,
I mean, I'm not trying to build them up something they're not, but they're pretty good.
You mentioned not really knowing what to expect, and some guys surprise you, some guys don't. Do you trust that on both sides of the ball there are enough veterans to where if there's a big play on Florida State's end in the first quarter, there's enough veterans there to keep these freshmen from keeping their head in the game?
I wish I could give you that answer. That's one of those unknowns. We try to instill and train them for those situations in practice, and we talk about it and play the next play. And there's going to be a lot of plays in the game, approximately 175 of them, give or take a few, and they're going to make some plays. They got good players, and you need to make some plays, and you need to keep playing. And we try to instill that in them, but some of them get the deer in the headlight look, and some of them don't.
Coach, a lot of talk about Jameis Winston and their passing game, but they ran for 200 yards a game last year. What makes their running game so effective?
Well, when you have a quarterback that can throw it and he's mobile and he can move around, and you have length and speed at the receiver position, they can do a lot of things on the perimeter, and they're flexible enough offensively to where they can line up and run it on you, and they can spread it out and throw it. And I would think that if you took a poll across the country, most coordinators, if you break them down, you're trying to decide whether you want to attack them and play man on the edge, or you want to stay back and play coverage and allow them to run the football. It's a simple game that people make very complicated. And when you're skilled at a lot of different positions, then you've been dealt a pretty good hand.
How do you like that stadium as a place to play?
I think it's a good place to play a game. Obviously, most people, from a fan's perspective, they love it. The Jumbotron is a little distracted for me as a coach, but I don't think that factors in the game.
Do you find yourself looking at it a lot in the Missouri game?
Some for replays. I think I kind of got over it after being in there the first time. The first time we played there, I thought I looked at it more in the game, but I finally got over that. But it sure is a good place to watch a replay.
Anything else?
All right, thanks, guys.